Ari, do you know what my guilty pleasure is?
Ooh, what is it?
Doing this show with you. Hello everyone. Welcome back to Restitching the Tapestry. Last week was our off week, so we are back, we are energized, and we are ready to go for a new episode. So this is episode 155, Guilty Pleasures. It's hard to believe that we are already on 155, but here we are, right?
Ooh, yes.
So Ari, how have you been and what have you been up to?
Oh my goodness, so much. How much can I say? Um, so I've been just dealing with a lot of drama recently, just a lot of little stuff here and there. Just not even that much. Just like guys up in my DMs just being ridiculous. I think is how I can put it. Just being
Getting
you
weird
know,
comments on YouTube,
yeah,
right?
just weird comments on YouTube. Just people just not respecting my boundaries the way that they should. And I've just had to kind of be back off. Back off.
Oh, well, it's not been as exciting for me. Well, I mean, I guess I've been trying to assert some boundaries. So I've been fighting with the Star Trek bigots over the last.
Oh no, not again.
So
Over what?
the final season of Star Trek Discovery has started, which is one of my favorite shows because of all the LGBTQ plus representation, and of course, the bigots are coming out of the woodwork, being like, "There's gays and strong Black women and trans people, and oh my god!"
Oh my gosh, they're so triggered.
And I'm just like I literally my trademark response, and I literally have it typed out in a template to copy and paste is, "Oh wow, a cis heterosexual white man commenting on marginalized communities. I've seen this before somewhere."
Oh no, what will we do?
Oh my
A
gosh.
cis white man is
You're
typing
so
paragraphs.
you're so triggered. Oh my goodness. You just wrote me. You put all that energy into that dissertation that you wrote me in your hate comment, and you're never getting that back.
Please don't melt, snowflake.
And then somebody to me, responded to me and they were like, "Aren't you getting tired of wasting your time arguing with people?" And I'm like, "No. I love arguing, actually. And if I can annoy a bigot, I will happily exist and annoy a bigot."
Oh yeah, I love it. Just like I'm here, I exist, and there's nothing you can do about it.
It's like, hello, so but beyond that, I've been working on just finishing up the end of the semester, working on gardening stuff. Technically, I started gardening we planted our seeds on March 14th. So we are on the 34th day of our growing season. And by the way,
Ooh,
everybody, I will be resuming my garden therapy series. I think
yay!
every year I'm going to try to do at least 5 episodes in that video series just to kind of piece things together once I build up enough content. So
I love it. I
I
love
know.
your garden videos.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited. It's going to be nice. I was talking to Ari about this in the back room, but we have a contractor coming out and they're going to be now that we have time to do house projects, we are getting a patio put in, which is going to be really lovely. It's not going to be huge, but it's at least something we can do with our backyard space. So if people come over, we can have a little soiree in the
Little
backyard.
party area.
Yeah, a little get together area.
See,
Um,
that's what I like about my mom's house. She has one of those overhang, those Grecian, you know,
a pergola or
she has a pergola, yeah.
oh, I do love me a good pergola. I've been having an existential crisis this past week, and I've had this conversation multiple times in my classes where I'm like, I'm in my mid-30s now, and now I get more excited over like home and house stuff more than I ever have.
No, that's exciting.
Like, so the other day, Britt's mom and brother and I and Britt went antiquing.
You did? Did you find anything good?
I bought an old analog wall thermometer. Like
An
one of those
old
old like one of those old brass ones, like
Did you put
attached.
it in your bathroom?
No, it's in the hallway.
Oh, okay.
I was like on my way to the office, I wanna look at the temperature on this cute, ornate analog wall thermometer.
I love it. That sounds great.
I
I would definitely have bought something similar.
I mean, I know you do like a good antique sale too, so well,
Absolutely.
we got current events to talk about. What do we have going on? So I will start first.
Yes.
Oh, Arpy's here. Hi, Arpy. It's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. So I will go first. We've talked about JoJo Siwa, like the inner. I get what would we refer to JoJo Siwa as an influencer, probably, right? An influencer.
Definitely a personality of sorts.
Yeah. So like JoJo Siwa, influencer slash internet personality, released a song titled Karma uh about a week ago. And suffice to say, it got some negative flack because it's an interesting music video. It's an interesting song. I do think the song is kind of catchy, but the music video is very people have been accusing it of being like very cringe and stuff like that.
I didn't think the dancing was that bad.
Oh, I did enjoy the choreo.
We were having a discussion when it first came out, like that the day it came out, you and I were like texting back and forth about it. And
Mhm.
I said the dancing wasn't as horrible. Like my first reaction was like, it isn't that bad, I guess. The hump the the grinding is kind of a little much.
Yeah, like, it
So that
seemed
was a little
overly aggressive, like, it just seemed
it seemed a little aggressive.
unnecessarily aggressive.
Yeah.
Arpy is not a huge fan of hers.
I
Um,
thought the costumes were a little too weird for me.
yeah, we all know that the internet has its way of, like, coming in full circle in very peculiar fashions, right? So Jojo Siwa basically in an interview made a comment about how she had written the song,
Yeah.
but actually someone else had written the song. And it was actually the song was originally written in like 2012 for Miley Cyrus,
Yeah.
apparently. And another artist basically got the song because Miley rejected it. This other artist's name is Britt Smith,
Mhm.
and so someone leaked the music video that was scrapped from that song, and it's been going hella viral on TikTok and YouTube. And
Um,
Jojo Siwa was like, I don't know who Britt Smith is. So Britt Smith was like, well, I'm gonna just drop the song on all streaming services then, so my version's out there. And it's
yeah,
now charting higher than JoJo Siwa's
of
song.
course. Her version's a lot better anyway.
Yeah.
But I saw a tweet, like a screenshot of a tweet that said, JoJo Siwa is like if you gave a homeschool kid a Mountain Dew.
I mean, kind of, yeah.
And
Kind of,
I was like,
yeah.
I couldn't, cause like, especially her like dressed up in like that kiss outfit thing that she's got
Mhm.
going on, and like that whole bad girl personality that she's trying to like cultivate
Yeah.
right now. It's definitely like if you gave a homeschool kid like a Mountain Dew and they're like, I'm so bad.
Kind that's exactly the vibe that it gives. So RP says, also not a fan of her disregarding gay icons. So JoJo also made a comment in an interview basically saying that she's inventing a new genre of music, that being gay pop, and people did not take that very well.
Yeah, it was like, okay, first of all, like Cher exists and like Lady
Cher,
Gaga
Gaga,
exists.
Kim Petras, Adam Lambert, Tegan and Sarah, like so many.
Yeah, like okay, okay.
Madonna, come on, like gay pop has been around since for a very 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 long time.
Like Madonna is basically gay pop, like beginning of
Oh,
gay pop, in my opinion.
absolutely, absolutely. Now,
Maybe
like
I think the gay pop might have existed slightly before that, but I think that we can
I've
definitively say gay pop started probably with Madonna.
I've gotten to the point where like part of me does feel bad for JoJo Siwa because I feel like she's not getting good advice from the people around her. Like I feel like she's existing in like this echo chamber where people are telling her this would be a great idea, and she kind of like goes with it 120%. But
Well, she
then,
just never had a personality of her own her whole life, and so
mhm.
she just kind of always just because she's just always selling products, like just selling things.
And honestly, we could connect her experience back to what we were talking about when we were talking about the quiet on set situation. Like she is also a child of Hollywood who basically grew up in these like shows on
Reality
sets and stuff
TV
like
shows,
that.
and so she was just always like she was always just, like, selling bows, and she was always just, like, selling, an image, and
Mhm.
so she doesn't I mean, is there such a thing as a real JoJo Siwa actually? And I'm like, does a real JoJo Siwa
Mhm.
actually exist besides what, these
Well,
corporate identities?
it also makes me worry about her well-being because we've seen other, like, artists, actors, and everything, like, growing up on the internet and putting, like, everything out there, kind of, like, not allowing, like, any filtering of themselves, and it just kind of, like, sets them up for failure, like, when things go awry. So, like,
Yeah.
I just like, as cringy as it is, like, a huge part of me does genuinely worry about her well-being because it's like if you're getting this not so good advice and you've never really had that strong of guidance in the past, like maybe surround yourself with people who will set you up for success, right? But that's those are just my thoughts on that.
I think that just the reason why people are rejecting this JoJo Siwa rebrand that she's doing is that there's just nothing genuine about it and nothing genuine about her, and that she did no soul searching at all about herself. That she just came out and she said, I've done bad things and I'm a bad girl." And like there's such
Or
a
I am
public
reinventing myself.
and
Nobody's
there's such
done
a public
that.
history of her being like this squeaky clean image. And so
Mhm.
it's sort of like, no, you never were bad. You've never done anything bad in your entire life. You've always been this squeaky clean image. So it's sort of like,
Mhm.
it's almost like I'm so bad. I'm such a bad girl.
It just seems so forced, and again, like you were mentioning earlier, like, not genuine, right? Like, it just seems
Right.
very forced. So, what's the next thing in our current event snapshot?
So because even though there was a super bloom back in 2017, because of all of the rain due to climate
Well,
change,
first, for
there's
those who do not know, what's a super bloom?
super bloom is when, due to lots of rain, there will be floral blooms, like lots of flowers and lots of plant blooms in the arid Death Valley, which is the lowest lying place in North America.
Mhm.
Um, so it's 238 feet below sea level. So you have, and Lake Manning actually formed in Death Valley this year, which was surprising. But NPS and climate scientists were looking at this because usually super blooms only happen about once every 100 years. The fact that it's happened only a few years after the last super bloom is quite concerning, and that the regularity of these blooms happening so close together is actually quite concerning to climate
Mhm.
scientists or bio or botanists and things like that. That
Yeah.
it should not be happening this soon.
Well, it just is the latest example of climate change, right? Like,
Right, that these things that, there is such a thing as like a regular bloom, but just the fact that these valleys are exploding with such an enormous amount of flowers, and that it's changing almost like the face of Death Valley. It's
mhm.
concerning.
Well, especially with that lake forming again, right? Like, that's a huge in of
Well,
itself is a
Lake
huge
Manning
occurrence.
forms anytime there is rain, but the fact that they're getting so much rain in California and in Death Valley is a site of concern.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, we'll add that to the climate change concern list, right?
Yeah.
So, what's the next thing we got?
Jurors were picked in the Trump trial, so we finally got a jury selection pick. So it looks like we're just about ready to start the Trump trial.
Oh, that's going to be dominating the news for future for until further notice, probably.
So I think for probably the next month, we're going to actually have like the actual trials happening.
Mhm.
I
Well,
think it's actually
hopefully
I think it's actually going to be a pretty quick trial too. I don't think it's going to be very. I think
I
it's going
think they're gonna probably make sure that it's expedited considering how much in the public eye it actually is,
to.
so
Yeah.
and then the other thing I see well, and you also mentioned in the notes that, Prince Harry is officially a US resident.
Hmm.
Interesting, I did not know that.
Yeah.
And then apparently he went through some sort of expedited process to become
No,
a
no.
resident.
I was talking. I mentioned that I only talk about like because of white privilege. I
Mhm,
mentioned that was kind of like an opinion because
mhm,
you think about like how long it takes to become a U.S. resident, as opposed to like you think about like Latino Americans or like Hispanic Americans, and you like think about like the process of becoming an American and like how long it takes to become a U.S. citizen,
and
and
how
like
accessible it is.
how the wait process of becoming an American citizen, and just like how quickly he can come over to the United States and become a US citizen, compared to like other people in the United States. And I was just like, wow, that was really fast that he can just like come over here and just like all of a
Mhm,
sudden he's a US citizen just like that. And it's just
right.
like that to me is like such privilege that I just think
It's
that
not only white privilege, but it's also very much class privilege, I'd say.
it's such privilege that I'm just
Yeah.
like that so many people are just like denied access to citizenship that he just like, and you're an American. And
Surprise.
I'm just like, and it's like, did he even have to take a test?
Mhm. Right. A valid question.
I
So
know.
what's the last thing that we got on our list?
Oh, Netflix stock is up now, with over 270 million subscribers, because they've been cracking down on share account sharing.
Oh,
So a lot
yeah.
of people have signed up for their own accounts. So over 270 million people are now subscribers on Netflix. So they've been doing their accounts have been doing pretty well.
Interesting. I wonder if other, platforms are gonna start doing that too. We'll
It
have to
makes me kind
see.
of upset. I don't use Netflix because I don't watch any subscription services anymore because I don't like Netflix and that account sharing crackdown that they did.
Mhm.
I stopped using Netflix after that because I was just like I don't like their methods.
Right, I don't blame you. Oh, RP also notes that OJ Simpson passed away too this past
Indeed,
week.
he did.
I saw that.
He died of cancer. My sister told me, and I was like, well, now OJ's killer or Nicole Kidman's killer is dead.
Oh my goodness. So, are we ready for the mission statement? And I think it's my
Yes.
turn this time. So, we live in a dynamic society where social media shapes us by creating greater opportunities for connection. It has led to a developing understanding of the adversity many marginalized communities face, the powers causing the adversity, and those who act as bystanders as atrocities take place in real time. Our goal with the show is to make connections and have challenging conversations about social topics, current events, pop culture, and art. Together, let's weave the threads of understanding with what privilege we have in order to learn, educate, and create in a world that's growing.
Yay.
Yay. So I think today's episode is going to be a little bit more of a lighthearted episode because we will be talking about guilty pleasures. Guilty
Yay.
pleasures. We wanted to do this episode for quite a while because it's just, I think, just general fun.
Yeah.
So before we start, let's at least try to establish what it means to have a guilty pleasure. So, how do we define it? Is it a hobby, a vocation, or a habit? So, most of the definitions I looked at establish a guilty pleasure as a habit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw or found anything or have heard of anything, but I would say that it's more so of a habit as opposed to a vocation. Although will say I've seen instances where guilty pleasures can turn into hobbies. What are your thoughts on
I
that?
see guilty pleasures as deadly desire. It's something that guilty pleasures are things that you just cannot resist, cannot live without.
Is
Just
it possible that there is a spectrum of guilty pleasure? Like maybe like there's innocent like ooh guilty pleasures. Like I like stamp collecting. And then there's like guilty pleasures that are like risque and like ooh. Ooh, Kaiju Kim is here. Hello, Kaiju Kim. I'm describing guilty pleasures as deadly desires from now on. It's good to see
thank
you,
you. I'm glad I
twin.
could update your vocabulary.
Arby thinks of it as a habit or an interest, but I do think that guilty pleasures can have certain deadly desire connotations to them. Let's just
No,
say.
here's an example of one of my deadly desires. I every weekend I hole myself up in my fortress of solitude, my apartment, and I grab as many books as I can, put them on my bed like a book boyfriend, and I read with literary abandon.
Not the book boyfriend and literary abandon again.
Just
Ari,
falling into the world of literature and just reading with abandon and just sometimes I order takeout, sometimes I cook for myself, but I just lay in bed and I just read with abandon. And sometimes I'll flip between books. Sometimes I will watch YouTube and take a break, but I just fall into the world of literature, and that's my deadly desire because I just do bed rot all weekend.
oh, does your book boyfriend have a name?
No, because it changes every time because it's different books all the time.
I was hoping it would be like some fantasy name like Alarian or
Ooh,
Alistair.
Ricardo.
Ugh. Oh my god. Well, so you mentioned rotting. We've talked about we could do a whole episode about this, honestly. But one of my like deadliest desire guilty pleasures is definitely just laying on the couch all day long. Just sitting there stewing and just rotting on the couch under a blanket with cats all over me watching reality television.
Absolutely.
Like I will watch an entire season of Jersey Shore
Mm-hmm.
and then be like, wow, 2009 was very problematic.
Snooky. Snooky.
Kaiju Kim says, my couch is my deadly desire. Like literally I get same.
Absolutely.
If I had my way, I would just be laying forever. Like if it wasn't detrimental to my health, I would just be laying.
Just
Because
like planking.
like I
Remember,
literally
the old photograph, where you'd plank.
yeah,
Just do that all the time.
yeah. Literally I'm very much a human embodiment of a cat. Like if I could just be lazy all day, I will gladly do it. Do you have any other guilty pleasures of that magnitude?
So I like to go down to the beach regularly to go do my writing, like to go write poetry, because I write 6 poems a day. But one of my dangerous regular desires is to stop at the local gas station and to get one of their cream-filled long johns and to eat that on
Ooh.
my way to the beach. They're like this long because they're like Bavarian cream. They're kind of like Boston cream donuts, but they're called long johns. So if you're not from Michigan, you might not understand what they mean. But they're
Mhm.
basically like Boston cream donuts, but they're long, kind of like eclairs, but they're longer.
Mhm.
So they're long johns.
They're so good. They're so
They're so
delicious.
good.
Kaiju Kim says, "Another reason you and I are twins, Donnie. I'm definitely a cat. We're in such good company. I love it." Um, Speaking of food related deadly desire guilty pleasures, I live right around the corner from an ice cream place, like an ice
You
cream
do not.
parlor.
Oh
I
my
absolutely
goodness.
do. So, like, sometimes I will literally, on my way home, I will go to this place and I will get like 2 scoops of ice cream on a waffle cone, and I'll just sit in my car. I'll watch YouTube videos, you usually yours, catching up on you. I'll watch you, Ari, and then eat this entire cone of ice cream. And usually it is a like chocolate coffee chunk with some sort of mint ice cream.
That sounds delicious.
It's so good. Jackie's here. Hello. We're doing well. How are you?
We're talking about our guilty pleasures,
We're
deadly
talking about our
desires.
guilty pleasures, Jackie. Share your guilty pleasures. So now, like, I do have more innocent guilty pleasures. Like, I mean, for example, whenever I'm doing anything like out and about, like if I'm going for a walk, I have to play Pokemon Go still.
Oh, see,
It's
I
been,
got over that guilty pleasure. That was a guilty pleasure that I had that I like
I
broke free
haven't,
from.
I haven't gotten over it.
You know what did it is that I moved out of Seattle. When I came home from Seattle after being in the hospital, I just wasn't able to play Pokemon Go the same way. Like just
That's
because
fair.
because being in Seattle and like living in that Seattle culture, it was so easy to play Pokemon Go because there are just so many stops and just Pokemon Go is just everywhere.
Hmm.
And it was like 2017 when I lived in Seattle. So when it first came out, like everybody played Pokemon Go and like the bus culture because you along the bus line you just go straight through all the stops like the
Just
the
all
gym
the
stuff and stuff.
Pokestops, all the gyms. Oh, I'm super
Yeah.
jealous of that. That sounds great. Kaiju Kim says Dunkin' Donuts is just a 3-minute walk away from my apartment. Sometimes I can't resist getting chocolate glazed munchkins. Ooh.
Ooh.
Ooh, and RP loves Dunkin' Donuts as well. So we're really on a food focused one. So I have one more food focused one. One of my guilty pleasures is
Mhm.
after my therapy appointments. I will sometimes go downtown in the city where I live, and I will go to this place called Aviator Cookie. It's specializes in just cookie baking, and they make these giant cookies of all varieties, and I will oftentimes grab a giant peanut butter or snickerdoodle cookie and eat the whole thing in one sitting.
That's intense.
It's very intense. I like
Um,
is that Larity that you're petting?
I am. He's my guilty pleasure too.
I love it. So I would say that for me, most guilty pleasures are habits. I will say though that some guilty pleasures have turned into like some habitual ones have turned into hobbies. Case in point, podcasting. At first, when we first started doing it, I think it was just like oh, it's a habit of ours. Just do videos together. And now it's like a regular staple in our lives.
I think my guilty pleasure when it comes to the podcast is looking forward to sitting in the back room.
For our gossip sessions, I know.
I love our backroom gossip sessions. I think that's like my favorite part of doing the podcast is like my guilty pleasure is just like get into the back room so we can chat before the show.
Hmm. And sometimes our zaniness in the back room spills over into what we're doing, which I love.
Absolutely.
Oh, Jackie. Oh, Arpy says, I don't think I have any guilty pleasures. Jackie says, oh my God, the German chocolate was to die for. Yeah, Jackie has had those cookies before. We know what we're talking about with those cookies.
So have you ever been shamed for having a guilty pleasure? And if
Yes.
so, how has it made you feel?
Oh my God. Like, so, I mean, when I, like, let's go back to 2003. Back when I wrote very bad Godzilla fan fiction. I often like I would consider that kind of like one of my guilty pleasures for like escape, right?
Yeah.
I used to get made fun of for it. People would shame me for doing that because they'd be like, "Well, you're just a nerd, Donnie. Like, why are you wasting your time?" It was always about
Oh,
wasting time.
yeah. Yeah.
And I've noticed in other like guilty pleasures, hobbies, whatever you want to call it, like the primary criticism has always been like, well, why do you want to spend so much time doing said thing? And my response is always, well, initially I never responded. I would just internalize it and feel bad. Now I'm like, if it makes me happy and enriches me, why
Yeah.
not? Like Ari, I cannot begin to tell you I've had people before, like family mostly, be like, "Why do you spend so much time like doing YouTube, doing like podcasts and stuff like that?" And I'm like, "Because it's fun to get together with people and have conversations about a topic. Like it's not like it's I think of it as hangout time."
Yeah, it's fun. It's just it's I think it's fun and it's informative. It's something that adds to the community in my opinion.
I think so too. Like the enrichment matters. Jackie says that one of her guilty pleasures is buying old furniture for super cheap, refurbishing them, and then selling them higher on like different outlets. That's
Ooh,
ooh.
that's fun.
I wish I had that like
Get that
skill
coin.
set. I wish I had that skill set to do that. Kaiju Kim says, jokes on them. Nerds are awesome. We are. We are so awesome,
So I
honestly.
was shamed because this goes back to when I moved to Grand Canyon. So I was at Grand Canyon, and I, my sister and I were just like in this room at in the dormitories. And so one of the things that I did was I decorated my side of the room with like art. So I took this like piece of string like yarn and I like hung it up on the wall and I like took like some brocade fabric that I had left over from when I lived in Iowa, and I like hung it up on the wall and like kind of made like a curtain out of it for my
Hmm.
window to kind of like keep the cold out. And I like hung like various like pictures off of it, just like kind of like a clothesline or something.
Oh, that
My
sounds
sister was
cute.
like, my sister was like, why do you have to make such ugly stuff? And I was like, it's just my guilty pleasure of just like hanging art and just like doing things a little bit differently. And she's like, it looks so stupid. It's so ugly. And like, why do you have
Why
to
are
do
people so demeaning?
I know. It was just like, I was just thinking about like, like for your hobbies of just like, getting made fun of for things that you like just because you like them. And it's just like your little guilty pleasure. And like, that was kind of like something that I got made fun of for a while was that like, um, you know, sometimes I just like silly things like, you know, cute fabric or, um, you know, uh, um, I used to sew. I'm trying my hand at sewing again, but
Mhm.
I just like cute fabrics, or I liked, just hanging up like drawings on the wall, and like, even just like hanging my art in my house. My sister doesn't like my art at all,
I
and
don't like that.
it's like my guilty pleasure. It's like my art. Like
It's an
I
extension
know
of
that
who
other
you
people don't
are.
appreciate it as much as I do, but like that's something that's kind of like my guilty pleasure.
Right, yeah. So, RP says, I tried to convince myself I was too old for Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and they were one. And then RP says, my therapist says if it makes you happy and doesn't hurt anyone or yourself, who cares?
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Jackie also says, you do what you want. If somebody doesn't like it, they don't need to undermine what you like. Yes, I agree completely. No, like I'll never forget the first time I really like going back to the fan fiction. The first time I ever really found the gumption to stand up for writing Godzilla fan fiction was when I was in a faculty meeting. It was, I don't know if it was like a formal meeting or not, but we were talking about how we got started up. Like how did we start writing? And everybody, if you've watched Growing Up with Godzilla, you know that this is something that I've shared a couple of times on there, but I started writing through Godzilla fan fiction and I shared that and I had people like audibly laugh. Like laugh at me, like, "Oh, you used to do that? That's cringy." Blah. And I was just like, "Excuse me." Like, there are a lot of people who begin their writing careers through fan fiction, right?
Right.
Um, I know a lot of people who teach literature who first started writing fan fiction because it allowed them to engage with whatever media or literature that they loved, right? So
Right.
I'm
And
just
it's like you're young and you're trying to write, and if you're using different world building, and it's already a world that's built, and
Mhm.
you're working with a in a built world, and you're kind of like using that as a jumping off point, why not?
Well, and I don't think a lot of people realize that fan fiction is the entry point for many when it comes to critical thinking, when it
Mhm.
comes to creating their own space for representation. Like, I know, like, for LGBTQ plus people especially, I'm very encouraging of fan fiction because if there's media out there that doesn't kind of carve any sort of space for us, like that fan fiction allows us to kind of navigate that space and create a small little nook of representation where we can feel like we belong in some fashion. So,
I love
yeah,
it.
I know. So I would also so other bless you.
Thank
Um
you.
Other guilty pleasures for me that's turned hobby, gardening. Love it.
I wish I could garden. I always talk to my sister about this too, and I'm like, because she's been growing herbs, and I just wish I could garden. So good.
I firmly believe that anybody can garden. I just think it takes practice and like
Yeah,
kind of, making sure that you have the right variables. Like I know like you live in a space that has like a lot of shade, right? So
yeah, I
there might
do.
be some plants that wouldn't be, as productive in that spot. But there might be others though too. No, like
Because I have a north facing apartment, so
mhm,
the sun goes perpendicular to my house,
mhm,
so I don't get a lot of like direct facing sun to my apartment.
right. Yeah, that's fair. Um, so I guess like now that I'm at a space where I'm like I have like a reasonable mental fortitude, more so than I used to, if people shame me for guilty pleasures, I'm just like, we're not doing that. Like
Yeah.
we're like I am paying you no mind regarding insulting guilty pleasures. So ooh, here's an interesting question for you. Has someone ever ruined your guilty pleasure for you and then you couldn't enjoy it after the fact? Like they said something or did something much like shaming and that you lost interest in that guilty pleasure.
So I was in Iowa and I was dating a guy, and his mom. I was vegetarian at the time, and I just happened to be eating a marshmallow, She said, "You know those have gelatin in them, which are animal bones." And
They
so I
do?
was
I didn't
like,
know that.
I literally took, I had the marshmallow in my mouth, took the marshmallow out, I set it down on the table, and I never ate marshmallows. I try not to eat marshmallows now
Oh
because,
no, I love
and
marshmallow.
that's why I often like lie to myself too about gummy bears, because gummy bears have gelatin in them, and so I have to like lie to myself like, oh, those don't
Hmm.
have gelatin in them, because it's and every time I eat gummy bears, I just hear my ex-boyfriend's mom going, "You know those have gelatin in them, right?"
I, I mean, I would say that my equivalent to that would probably be I used to love Twinkies a lot. And I had a family member be like, "You know, those are like terrible for you." And after that, I stopped eating them. And then I read up on them. And I was like, actually, they are pretty bad for you.
I was also trying to be vegan. I tried to be vegan several times in my life, but one time I was trying to be vegan in Death Valley, California, and so I would get like pizza without cheese on it, and I would do all sorts of things. And I was sitting at the bar there, and I was getting a drink. I was getting a vodka soda with a splash of cranberry. She goes,
Ooh.
vodka and liquor is not vegan, right?" And I was like, "Excuse me, did I tell you about what I needed, that I needed to be policed on the vegan quality of my alcohol?
Was this
Or
a
are you just gonna
man?
pour
Was
me
this
a
a
drink?"
man who did it?
No, this is a woman.
Oh, I was gonna be like, of course, it's probably somebody mansplaining.
No, it was a person who decided that they were gonna show me up and tell me what was in my alcohol, and that it was not exactly vegan alcohol. And I was like, you know what? Just pour my drink and
That's like very Karen behavior.
it's just rude, is what it is. Like, it's not none of your business whether or not.
Mm.
First of all,
Oh,
if I'm splitting hairs about whether or not my liquor is vegan at that point, like, oh my god.
it's like really. Kaiju Kim says, everything is bad for you these days. Eat the Twinkies. Honestly, that's kind of accurate. Coffee is another one of my guilty pleasures. How have I not thought of
Oh my
that?
god, coffee is such a guilty pleasure. I can't drink that
I'm
much. I can't drink that much coffee. I used to drink so much coffee. Do you know in my early 20s, coffee used to be such a guilty pleasure. I would go to Rendezvous in Grand Haven, and I would
uh-huh.
literally drink pot after pot of coffee until I like was buzzing. Like it literally would be like
Oh no. I
I,
used to
I
drink a lot more coffee than I do now. I mean, I still drink quite a bit, but
I would literally sit there for like 5 hours and drink cup after cup of coffee until I go home, and I'd just be like, my eyes would just be like, just be like, I wouldn't eat anything. I might have a grilled cheese and some French fries, but I literally would just drink cup after cup of coffee and smoke cigarettes, and I would go home, and I would be like, I I think I can sue the universe.
RB asks, does liking the 1995 Power Rangers movie, if anything you like can be count as a guilty pleasure, I think.
Um,
Absolutely.
what's the most cups of coffee you ever drank in one day?
I've drank 2 pots of coffee in one day before.
That's rough.
Where, I mean, if you count how many cups that would be, it was like a 12-cup pot. So that would mean that I had 24 cups of coffee.
So, how did you sleep that night?
Probably didn't. I can't remember.
Oh
That's
my
probably
god.
why I can't remember. I drank too much coffee.
Were you shaking?
I was pissing my pants basically and pee pee poo poo
Pee pee poo poo.
situation. Kaiju Kim says, I mean, an iced caramel latte with lots of extra caramel, my deadly desire. Yes.
It's kind of like that episode of Futurama where Fry goes to drink like 100 cups of coffee, and he gets the 100th cup of coffee, and all of a sudden he can like slow down time. I think that's just what I imagine you
I
got.
remember
You
that
drink like 2 pods of coffee, and all of a sudden you can like slow the space time continuum. I
If
think
I
that
could do that, that would be great.
I definitely believe at one point in your history, like part of your lore, Donnie, is that you have space time traveled.
I had a past life that could manipulate the fabric of space-time.
Absolutely, I do believe that's part of your
My
history.
life was an
You've time
off-brand great
traveled.
value Star Trek.
You've definitely time traveled.
Have you ever gotten sick of a guilty pleasure and it turned into an immediate ick and never felt the same way again?
Yes, I was a teenager, and every day for a year, I would eat pizza from my school's cafeteria, and I would eat it and eat
Oh,
it and eat it.
those square pizzas, yes.
And I would just well, they were just a slice of greasy pepperoni pizza. I would just eat pizza every single day for a whole year. And then all of a sudden I couldn't stand eating lunch anymore. And I just stopped eating school lunch altogether because I just
Oh.
could not stand it anymore because the grease just built up a ball in my belly.
Oh no.
One person
Oh.
cannot eat that much pizza, but I somehow managed to eat that much pizza.
I'm trying to think of what guilty pleasure was my ick. I think one of my guilty pleasures that turned into an ick was um probably when I used to like just eat ravioli all the time.
Oh yeah, I can't eat.
I can't do ravioli anymore. Like anything Chef Boyardee, like SpaghettiOs, ravioli, I cannot eat anymore. Now, if it's like an appetizer at a bar, like fried ravioli, I'll eat that. But
Yep,
beyond that, I do not do ravioli anymore.
right.
1000%.
Not none of the Chef Boyardees. I can't eat any of those because I grew up eating that stuff too. Also, I can't eat Totino's pizza rolls anymore because I grew up eating that stuff too.
Yeah. What? Ooh, one of mine, tuna noodle casserole.
Yep.
We ate
Yeah.
that so much as a kid. Kaiju Kim says, "When I was a kid, I was obsessed with the Land Before Time franchise. Now I only like the original film and cringe at the sequels are very cringy." Like I do feel like, Ari, have you ever watched Land Before Time?
I did. Yeah.
I do feel like the first film had like a degree of seriousness to it that was like good storytelling, but the others are just ooh. Although I will say that I love the character Chomper. And some of the songs are great. Like, what is it? Movie 6 or 7? There is this song called "The Lone Dinosaur" that is like it's a bop. To this
Yeah.
day, I'm like, "The lone dinosaur." Like it's ooh,
When I
that was
was
a deep
10,
cut.
I used to watch all of I would watch The Lion King, push rewind on the VCR, and then watch The Lion King over again. And I did that over and over and over and
Oh,
over. I don't think I could watch The Lion King ever again like that.
oh. Kaiju Kim. That was movie 6. I'm glad that you confirmed it for me. Have you watched all the movies, Kaiju Kim? Because if that's the case, then you're the only person other than myself who I know who's done that. Um, the movie that gave me the ick, that it was which was a guilty pleasure, and it was Pocahontas, the Disney version. I used to love that movie, loved the music, but then when I like got older and like took an indigenous lit class,
Yeah.
I was like,
Ick.
that definitely does not represent
Indigenous culture by any means or
it by
any stretch
any
of the
like
imagination.
like
And
like
that even within the context, yeah,
yeah, like
that she was not 15 years old, but she was 12.
none of that. Oh my goodness. RP says, "What about Great Big Water? Is that one of the Land Before Time movies?" And Kaiju Kim says, I think I stopped at 7. Probably a good idea, because 7 was the last one that was like reasonably okay. But yeah, I would say that was probably my big ick. I would say that I had. Do you want to hear a very embarrassing guilty pleasure from
Yes.
when I was a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go.
So when I was a kid, like when we grew up in a time partially before computers and like technology was like a super big thing. So I remember playing outside a lot, and because I loved Godzilla so much, what I would do is I would like take inanimate objects or sticks or boxes and shape them into other kaiju.
Yeah.
And then I would like create my own like little elaborate stories, and I was like Godzilla and I would like fight these things. And I at one point, I think like my parents were like recording my brother and I like being outside and like, doing kid stuff.
Yeah.
And I saw a video of me playing with I had taken a box and I had cut it into like a flappy flying monster, and I called it Boxy. Terrible. And I remember seeing it, like seeing myself play with this box. And I was like, what am I doing? What am I
I
doing?
love it.
I had so much fun.
I want to see this. I want to see this video.
I don't know if it still exists anymore, but my parents will still sometimes be like, "Are you bored? Do you need to go play with Boxy?" And I'm like, "Yeah." If like heaven forbid they got like a refrigerator box or another appliance box that was huge, giant kaiju,
Mega giant kaiju.
mega giant
Absolutely.
kaiju.
Lest you actually be creative and have fun and have that joy.
I would even like draw designs on them.
I love it. That sounds amazing.
I knew how to occupy my time as a kid. Like I never got bored. Like I was always zoned in on something.
I
So,
love it.
do guilty pleasures lead to bad habits, or can they create a sense of routine?
I think
Mm,
I think that guilty pleasures or deadly desires create a sense of joy and wonder in your day. And that I think that for me, especially the donuts just are like little things that just kind of like they're just things to look forward to because I don't have many things in my life that I look forward to. I'm a very lonely person. I don't have many people or things that I kind of like look forward to. So it's just one of those little sprinklings of joy that just
a
kind of
sprinkle of
intermingle my day.
serotonin.
Little dose of serotonin in my day. I should not always be eating the donuts, and sometimes I have to keep the donuts out of my mouth and have to not say yes to the donut. But sometimes I say yes to the donut because the donut is delicious.
Um, so the another one that for me, I would say this turned into a bad habit. And actually, like the next question is how fine is the line between guilty pleasure and self-destruction? So I probably TMI everybody, but we all know each other. So I used to have like a lot of ear issues. Like I used to like when I was a teenager, I had like eczema in my ears, and which
Goodness.
apparently is very common. I did not know it was common. But I saw like I had some sort of allergy that would like make my ears incredibly itchy. And there was a time where a doctor prescribed me these like peroxide eardrops,
Oh,
and they felt so good.
so you got addicted
Like
to them?
I don't know if you've ever felt the satisfaction of satisfying a deep ear itch.
So there's kind of like a meme that's going around on YouTube right now of it's what it's like to chew five gum.
Oh, what does that mean? I don't think I've seen it.
So the comment is it's what it's like to chew five gum.
Oh, oh, I think I know what you're talking about now. Well, the point being though, like I started like like I had these eardrops and I started using them like past the point of like I should have, and it actually started like making my ears sore.
Yeah.
And I had to go to the doctor for it. But I just distinctly remember being like I didn't know like that I could satisfy a deep ear itch, and it turned into like this weird
It's
obsessive
like, have
thing
you
that I
ever
would
got
do.
an itch on your hand and you start like biting it because you want to get that satisfaction?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes. 1000%. I would say like so the question of how fine is the line between guilty pleasure and self-destruction, I would say college for me. I had a lot of those. One of them being working out. I got
Yeah,
to the point where I worked out so much and it was like a guilty pleasure because I liked the feeling of it and I liked how I looked, but I did it so much that it started
yeah,
impacting my health.
yeah.
And
I got addicted to running in college. Though that
mhm,
runner's high was something because you know I when I got into Death Valley I'd be running like 6, 7 miles a day, or and I got up to like where it was getting to be like 8 or 9 miles where I was running, and then I was working all night. Like I'd work 5 hours a
mhm.
night. I wear a Fitbit and it'd say I'd walk like 50 to 55,000 steps a day.
Oh my god. Wow. Oh
And
my god.
I was just like, I would do these like challenges with my ex boyfriend and his like family and stuff. And I'd be like, you chumps, you only walked 25,000 steps today. You need to keep up, losers.
Oh my god, that is a lot of steps. Oh my god. Well, I think for me, like in college, the reason why I mean, I did like the feeling of like working out and like how I looked, but because like honestly, like looking back at it then versus now, like working out feels more enriching now than it did back then because I felt like back then I was doing it for like just the escape, but also like the trying to fit into the queer community because of course the
Yeah,
shallowness of being LGBTQ plus and coming out like you had to look attractive and you had to fit these body standards, right? Now
yep.
I'm like now when I
There's
work out I'm like,
so much self hate too. She was just like, oh God, I
right.
don't look good. And it's like you look back at it you're now and you're like, what was I thinking?
Now, don't get me wrong, like I still have moments where I look in the mirror and I'm like, look at those love handles, like I got a spare tire. But then I'll have like moments where I'm like, I will work out and I actually feel the physical benefits of like the how good I feel. Not just like looking in the mirror and being like, ooh, like I feel genuinely good.
Do you want to hear something really great about me recently?
Yeah.
So I've been doing over a year's worth of self affirmations and I've hypnotized myself that I can look in the mirror now and go, I'm really beautiful. There's nothing wrong with my body. I
Um,
love the way I look. I love the way I am. And there's nothing wrong with my body. And I can literally look in the mirror now and I don't think angry thoughts about myself or ugly thoughts about myself anymore.
that's great. I love that.
I and like not I don't even think like one like ever like I very rarely think ugly thoughts about my body.
That's good. That's I mean, it takes a lot of work to get to that point though, too, right?
Yeah.
Because um that's something that I'm still working on. Like, I'm better than I used to be, but I still have some self-deprecating tendencies, but, I want to
It
get to
takes
the point.
a lot of self affirmations. You just got to keep doing it every day. Just saying really nice things to yourself and just like because I watched videos where I would repeat
Mhm.
every single day, repeat it every
Like a
single day.
mantra, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, you are beautiful.
You are beautiful.
We're so cute and cringy, and I love it.
I know. It's a guilty pleasure of mine.
You all know that you tune into this as a guilty pleasure as well because you enjoy this banter. Now make sure you click like and subscribe. Have you ever denied yourself a guilty pleasure even though you've enjoyed it thoroughly?
Ah, yes. It's always the donuts and the pizza. Always the
Eh,
donuts and the pizza and the ice cream.
same. Every time I deny myself a carb, that is an example of that. Because I do so love my carbs.
Over the weekend, let me tell you a recent story. Over the weekend, I ordered a lot of Little Caesars. Like, I ordered a pizza. I ordered those, those new cheese puffs that they have at Little Caesars, right?
Mm,
With a
yeah.
little cheese, and they're like 4 pieces, and you get the herbs and whatever in them, and they're like little mini pizzas that you just pop in your mouth or whatever. So I ordered a pizza, a deep dish veggie pizza, so like the Detroit style, and I
Oh my
ordered the
God.
the puffs, and then I ordered brownie M&M, like M&M brownies. So we ordered a lot of food, and I was like gonna sit
You
down.
weren't messing around.
I was gonna binge eat it all, and I was like, I'm guilty pleasure all around, and I was like gonna eat all of it. But then I was like, oh man, I really shouldn't be eating all of this food. Like, this is really bad. So I literally just put it off, and I put it off, and I put it off. I fell asleep. I woke up. They canceled my order. I went down to the store and I said, did you make my order? And they said, no, we canceled it. We had to. I said, can I get a refund for it? And they said, yeah, we'll refund you. And so they refunded my order. And I went home and I cooked dinner for myself.
What an empowering moment though. Like, what an empowering moment.
I
I
was
know,
like,
like,
I denied myself that guilty pleasure. I was like, I don't need to be eating that stuff anyway.
I think my big obstacle is, well, like, I know my big obstacle with eating in general is like binge eating is knowing how I'll feel afterward. Because you know me, I have like that neurosis of like, I don't want to feel like I'm nauseous or anything like that. That helps me kind of like prevent that result sometimes, because there is nothing more that I hate than feeling too full. Like, I
Right.
hate it. Hey, that is absolutely not a guilty pleasure for me.
So I'm really glad that I was like, I'm just not gonna eat those. Sometimes you just gotta say no. You just gotta say no and say, I'm not gonna eat that today.
That's a great way to kind of like end this here, because sometimes when you have guilty pleasures, especially if they are, a bit easy to get fixated on, like, don't be afraid to create boundaries for yourself. Like, it's important to be able to get to the point where you can do that. Are we always perfect at maintaining those boundaries? Maybe not. But as long as we're
It's okay to
trying.
indulge sometimes in
Yes.
modest amounts, but sometimes sometimes they're deadly desires, but sometimes you just gotta say no.
I know, right? Oh, well, my friends, thank you again for tuning in for another episode. Don't forget to click like if you haven't yet. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Go subscribe to Ari's channels, Tarot Time with Ari, Strange Nothings, and Bucha Baby.
Oh,
And please don't forget, feel free to share our stuff around, and don't forget that we love you, and we will be back again next week. Bye. Have a good night.
bye.